Hey, Trailblazers. There's always been one stop between Houston and the Guadalupe Mountains that has mattered to me the most, and that's my stop at Mom's Kitchen Express in Van Horn, Texas. Over the years, I've told our hiking community about this little gym out in West Texas and to swing by when they're heading to the Guads for a wonderful meal. For me, it was always a joy to stop by and hear Mr. Espinosa saying, "Another one of your hikers stopped by for a meal." They had to close the restaurant down for a couple of years due to family needs, but there's some exciting news. Mom's Kitchen Express is open once again. Same wonderful recipes, and it still feels like home. And it still carries the legacy of the man who loved this land as much as we do. So if you're heading out to the Guadalupe Mountains or just passing through Van Horn, make sure you stop by for a meal and to tell them hi from the Trailblazing Texas podcast community. Mr. Espinosa, you were missed. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today's episode is local, coming to us from Lake Livingston State Park. We are excited to have Interpretive Ranger Eric. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Jason.
Oh, absolutely. So first and foremost, before we dive into everything about Lake Livingston, I just want to let you know that I truly enjoy your content. The videos are amazing. It's like you can get into kind of like a rabbit hole of Eric videos and all the wonderful information. And I'm making this a point at the very beginning because it's important to me to let the listeners know that, like from educational point of view, supporting parks and stuff, like your content is awesome. And if you are listening to this podcast and you are not connected in some way to Lake Livingston's Facebook page, Instagram, you are really, really missing out. And also, Eric, I don't know how often you hear, and also to all the state park employees, about all the effort you guys put into programs, running parks, and all that stuff. I don't know if you guys hear it enough, how grateful we all are, but hey, I just want to personally thank you for all the efforts that you put into your content, because I know it's not easy.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's something that I care a lot about, making the remote content so that we don't just influence the people that are coming to the park, I mean, and I get people I had somebody from, I think, Ukraine not terribly long ago that was commenting on one of my videos. It's like, oh my gosh, we are really making a difference, not just in East Texas, but even worldwide with these videos talking about natural resources and parks and wildlife. I mean, it's amazing. And, that's the main reason I do it, is just to get people involved with this kind of stuff as much as possible.
Absolutely. And again, to the listeners, get connected. I think the video content is mainly on Facebook, right? And not so much Instagram, or is it
It's
both?
mostly on Facebook. We do have an Instagram page. We don't post to it as often. Now, also the Texas Parks and Wildlife official YouTube channel. Some of the videos that I've done are on there as well as a few of the other TPWD sponsored YouTube channels as well. There's a few on there as well, but it's mostly our Facebook page. Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, I really have to come back maybe with a little bit of negativity. Did you really have to make a video and let me know that snakes are living in the trees in this area?
Yeah, I mean, you are very unlikely to see them unless you're looking for them. But yeah, and you're referring to the rough green snakes, I would imagine. Yeah, they're some of the most docile snakes in the world. I mean, like I'd never recommend anybody goes and, just picks up a snake they find in the wild. But I mean, these are these are snakes that nobody in any way needs to be worried about. Like you could pick one up and it would do absolutely nothing to you. They eat they're insectivores, so they eat bugs and stuff like that, and spiders too. So if you don't like spiders, they're a great one to have around your property.
Well, I'm always on the Lone Star hiking trail almost every weekend, a little less in the summer because of the horse flies. And I saw that video and I'm like, really, Eric?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I'm constantly walking around looking. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. To the listeners, get connected. You will not be disappointed.
well, thank you.
Eric, I don't know if you knew this or if it's official, but I believe you have a fan club. And the reason why I believe this is I made a post that, future guests that are coming on the podcast, when we were kind of like, hey, when are you available and stuff? And yeah, I'll do it. There were comments, and this is the first that it's ever happened. And I didn't mention your name. I just mentioned Lake Livingston. And they're like, OMG, is it Ranger Eric? Or, oh my, please tell me it's Ranger Eric. Or,
Oh my
so
goodness.
yeah, so I'm just saying it. I'm throwing it out there. You may have an unofficial fan club. I haven't searched for Ranger Eric fan club yet, but it could be out there. Now, with that being said, I've assigned you a tagline. And to the
Okay.
listeners, you start watching his videos. They always start out with, hey, everyone, this is Ranger Eric.
I get tired of hearing it whenever I'm like scrolling through our Facebook page. It's just that over and over again, and I get so sick of hearing it.
I mean, I love it. It's a tagline. So I'm officially
Yeah.
right now on the Trailblazing Texas podcast assigning that's your tagline.
Yep.
If you start to think about, like Lake Livingston and raising money and, I want people to donate to the park, buy the merch. Can you imagine you walk into the visitor center and oh, there's the store. You walk into the store, all sizes, all colors, just your mug on a shirt with your tagline. Hey, everyone, this is Ranger Eric. I'm telling you,
I don't know if that would be a blessing or a nightmare to me, but that would still be really cool.
I don't know who the superintendent is for Lake Livingston. I'm telling you, this could be hot.
Oh yeah, I'll have to talk to her and see if we can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just thought it was funny because, usually I announce the company or, the state park. And this was the first time that I had multiple comments about, oh my God, is it Ranger Eric? So just gotta to share that with you.
That's funny.
So again, to the listeners, get connected. You will love it. You will learn about love bugs, about snakes that live in trees, mole crickets. I didn't even know they were still around. And so
Yeah. Yeah, you don't
it
usually
is.
see them very often, but they're around, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely, you will learn a lot. So I don't know how much of the podcast that you've listened to. I have a section of the podcast that I love. It's the lightning round. So these are questions the listeners love. You have not seen
Oh
the
boy.
questions. And this is the first on the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I've made a post, an AI video to the listeners for them to provide lightning round questions. And I also sent an email to the state park superintendents, interpretive rangers that have previously come on the podcast to provide some lightning round questions. And so I have two questions from a listener. And then I just received a question from Junior at Tyler State Park. So are you ready for all this?
I sure am. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. All right, questions from listener Nace, and he has a dog, Texas Lily. They have been to Lake Livingston. They are on a quest to take Lily. She's a rescue to all the Texas state parks, and I think they're up to like 50 something state parks.
Oh
I've
wow.
actually met Lily. I've hiked with her, and I believe the day that I hiked with her, the first park that they visited was Lake Livingston. So that's kind of cool. So are you ready for their questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Nace says, would you rather deal with spider webs to the face or horseflies during a hike?
Oh, spider webs any day.
All right. And from Lily, I don't know how she typed this with her paws, but here we go. What is your best post hike reward meal?
I went and got sushi after a hike one time. I'm a big sushi person. So I'd say sushi is after a night hike's one of my favorite things to do.
All
Yeah.
right.
And
Love it.
yeah, I'd say that's probably a good one. Yeah.
All right. From Junior, are you ready for his?
Oh boy, yep, I'm ready.
No, it's a good question. So, what is your favorite thing about your park?
My favorite thing about our park would be the lake access is awesome. The fact that, I can go and, just see people having fun, out on the lake on any given day is really, really cool. I mean, I love the woods and the, grasslands that we have as well. But just having access to that, because it's a totally different environment that you can go and just see all kinds of different things. And I'd say the lake access is one of my favorite things. It's so hard to pick a favorite with anything, I think, but I'd say that's a good one. Yeah.
All right. So, this is just kind of the standard question, sunrise or sunset at the lake?
We have some of the most beautiful sunsets here. I don't even say this from a biased perspective, or at least I don't intentionally say it from a biased perspective, but the sunsets that we have out here are absolutely drop dead gorgeous. So I'd have to say sunsets.
All right. For you, on the lake or on the trail?
It just depends on the day. Like if it's a really hot, muggy day, I'd rather be out on the lake. But if it's a nice spring day and it's, in the 60s or 70s and some sun's out and, maybe I have a higher chance at seeing some wildlife out on the move, I'd rather be on the trails.
All right. Favorite season in the park?
Spring. Spring, absolutely.
All right. Most underrated part of Lake Livingston State Park?
That's a good one. As far as the most underrated portion, there's an old bridge that's blocked off right now. I'm hoping that we can get it fixed up pretty soon here, but that's a nice little secluded area that people don't know as much about. It's along the Trinity Trace Trail towards the south end. Not as many people know about that spot. And if you want a place to kind of just get away from people during the weekend or on a weekday, that's a pretty good spot. So I'd say down on around the southern end of the Trinity Trace Trail. Yeah.
All right. One thing that you never come to work without?
One thing, my camera. I mean, not just that. I mean, water, obviously, and like some of the more life essential ones. But my camera is definitely a big one for sure.
All right. Go to camp meal.
Camp meal. Let's see. Go to camp meal. Well, I usually, honestly, I'm pretty basic with this. I just like a good old hot dog and s'mores. The
No.
typical Boy Scout. I mean, I'm an Eagle Scout, so I'm already used to that kind of thing. But yeah, just hot dogs and s'mores, keeping it
Nice.
simple.
All right. Campfire early in the morning or late at night?
Late at night. Late at night.
I love this question. What is your favorite sound in the park?
Oh, that's awesome. We have all. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed. I'm a big herpetology person, and frogs are encompassing of that. So some of the frogs that we get out here, like the Rio Grande chirping frogs, are really cool because you'll just hear them seemingly randomly throughout the woods. They're not like other frogs where they have to gather around a water body to call. You'll just hear them chirping in seemingly random places out in the woods. They're one of my favorite ones that we get out here. I could go on and on with the different nighttime and daytime wildlife sounds that we get out here, but I'd say that's one of my favorites. Yeah.
All right. And this is for the listeners. One word to describe Lake Livingston State Park.
Oh, that's hard. It's just peaceful. I feel like we have a pretty. Obviously, it depends on the day and what's going on, what season. But I mean, we have a pretty tranquil park in most instances, I suppose you could say. So if I had to pick one word, I guess I would just say peaceful. Yeah.
All right. For you, what is your favorite? The piney woods or desert mountains?
I was just in the desert mountains. That's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I love them both for different reasons. I have a lot more time in the piney woods and just in like deciduous forested habitats. So if I'm being biased, I guess I would have to say the piney woods just because that's where I'm from. But it's so hard to pick a favorite. Both of those, both of those ecological regions, they have a lot of really unique attributes that make it hard to pick a favorite. But for the sake of being biased, I guess I'll just say the piney woods for now. Yeah.
Man, you put me in the Guadalupe Mountains for the rest of my life, and I'll be a happy
Oh
camper.
yeah, it's amazing out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my heaven on earth. I think I've been out there between 25 and 27 times now, and
Yeah, when I was watching the one with Junior, you were referring to the Guads. Is that what you were talking about with the
yep.
Guadalupe? Okay, yeah, yeah.
All right, so what is your favorite activity to do at the park?
The night hikes. I love doing the night hikes. We always have. I say always. It's almost every single time I do a night hike out here, which I do them usually at least once or twice a month. I mean, we get 30 to 50 people almost every single time. And they're just fun, like we see so many cool things, we see all kinds of different wildlife species. Everybody's always in a good mood and ready to have a good time out in the woods. And it's a really good way to dispel myths and kind of like destigmatize, being in wild places at nighttime. Because I feel like people, in a lot of cases, they kind of are worried about being out in the woods at night because they think everything's going to get them. Depends on where you're at, but around here, you can go on a night hike and be safe. So in most cases.
The first time I through hiked the Lone Star Hiking Trail, there was Bigfoot behind me.
Oh yeah.
I was way ahead of the people that I was with, and I couldn't see their headlights through the trail anymore. And I sat down on my backpack, turned off my headlamp. And this is probably 3 or 4 in the morning. Immediately when I turned off my headlamp, there were footsteps behind me.
Oh
Not
really?
like you know how you can hear, like I probably every morning I wake up, I have 30 deer in my backyard, 10 sleeping in the front yard. So I know what a deer sounds like just walking through the grass. This was steps, like step,
Like
step.
bipedal?
Yes,
Really?
whatever that fancy word means.
They're like two legs, yeah, like a person walking.
And I turned my headlamp on, couldn't see anything, and I got my backpack and I ran back to him. So
Oh man. I'm glad you survived.
yes, I knew I was gonna die. There
Yep,
was
yep.
Bigfoot out there. I love asking the interpretive rangers this question. Funniest thing you've ever heard a visitor say?
Uh, recently it's been the 6'7" thing a lot. I've heard
Oh, yeah.
I've heard a lot of kids say the 6'7". I still don't really understand it, but I just think that's pretty funny whenever I hear people talking about, the the 6'7" thing. So as far as recently goes, I'd say it's the, kids remarking about 6'7", whatever that means. So,
Yeah. All right. What's tougher to manage, the heat or the crowds?
well, it depends on how hot it is and it depends on the crowd, but, I mean, most of the crowds that I have for my programs are pretty great, like they're not, usually very difficult to manage, especially if I've got help. But we're in East Texas. I'd say the heat by far, especially around this time of year and going into July and August. Yeah, I'd say the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your go-to trail snack?
Oh, those like the dehydrated pineapples. They're kind of sugary. I love those. I mean, they're not great to only eat, but as like like a treat to have, like after some trail mix or something like that, or beef jerky, great. Like you can't go wrong with the dehydrated pineapples. They've been my friend while backpacking in the past, so I'd have to say those guys.
Nice. What is the coolest animal you've spotted at the park? And before you answer, I just want to let you know that Nace and Lily, when they came to your park, in that quest to do all the Texas state parks, they saw a white, I guess, albino deer that was in the park.
Oh, is it a fallow deer? Yeah, we get yeah, we do there we get fallow deer out here. They're kind of white. They're like a genetic abnormality. You can think of it that way. I won't get too, in depth
Thank
on it.
you.
Yeah, I know. It, as far as it's so I mean, like, I have a hard time deciding which one is the coolest because I mean, like, that's I the Louisiana milk snakes out here are my favorite species of wildlife to find because they're incredibly challenging to find, and, they're beautiful, beautiful snakes. I don't know if you or any of the listeners have ever found one or not. Are you familiar with the milk snakes?
I am not.
So they're red, black, and white, and, they're the ones that look like coral snakes, but they're not venomous. They're beautiful, beautiful snakes, and, we found one of my night hikes one time. I'd say that whenever we see a Louisiana milk snake out here, that's always the species of wildlife that I'm the most excited to see out here, yeah.
Nice. What do you think is the most important thing for first timers coming to the park should know before arriving?
Well, that you have to stop by the headquarters and pay, a little $6 fee if you're an adult. It's not much, but a lot of people they come and they don't realize that, and sometimes people get a little frustrated over that. But yeah, just to know that there is a small day use fee, and then also big thing if you're wanting to camp with us, and I feel like this goes for a lot of state parks. Make sure, especially if you are trying to camp with us on a weekend, that you reserve well ahead of time. So at least a month in advance. I know that's a big ask for some people because, I get it. A lot of people kind of want to just, oh, we're on a road trip and we need somewhere to stay on a whim. And they notice the state parks right there. And sometimes you get lucky and we have availability, but I'd say definitely book well in advance if you're planning on staying here for a weekend camp out, regardless of what type of site you get, for sure.
And I always tell the listeners, and this dates back to, I think, the second state park that came on, Nick, with Government Canyons. Make a reservation, make a reservation. And I don't even care if it's off season or if the state park isn't kind of the crowded state parks that we have in Texas, that you're the only person in the state park, make a reservation because
Mm,
first off, it guarantees you access to the park. And also, even if it's not a crowded state park, the amount of work that a person or, like the person that at the front desk has to
yes.
do to get you checked in, if you have a
Mhm.
reservation, like I think they counted it and it was like 17 or 23 extra clicks and types if you don't have a reservation versus if you
Yeah.
have one. So
It makes it so much easier for our headquarters staff because you got to think like on a Friday, like today, we've got dozens of people coming in to check in. So, I mean, sometimes if you're in the headquarters building, you'll look on a Friday and you'll have people, lined up outside of the building because there's a lot of people coming in. So, like, if you've got somebody coming in and they haven't made a reservation yet, they have to go through all that process up at the front desk, and then everybody has to wait for longer. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It definitely helps the workflow for sure.
this is my favorite question, I think, to ask superintendent or interpretive ranger is what part of the park do you hope never changes?
Ooh, that's a good one. What part of the park do I hope never changes? The So we have some water treatment plants that all of the wastewater goes through to get repurified or to get purified so we can use it again. And around some of the water treatment plants, we actually have a small prairie. And I've been doing, I did a project with a bunch of volunteers a few months ago to try and restore a lot of that prairie because if you don't manage a prairie, a lot of the woody um, plants come and encroach and they grow in and then, bye bye prairie, they get grown over. So you can't keep a prairie around unless you're doing semi-constant maintenance on it. So I'm hoping that we never lose our prairie, and I'm putting a big emphasis on making sure that we get people out there working on it so that we don't lose it.
So, what would you tell a brand new park ranger starting there on their very first day?
Uh, Pace yourself. Like that was one of the big things a lot of people told me whenever I first started on, because I wanted to have a job like this since I was a kid. I mean, like this has been a childhood dream of mine. Like I'm not kidding. Like since I was 10, I knew that I wanted to do something in parks or wildlife. And whenever I first got hired on, I was just like, go, 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 go. And like I was just, you know, throwing so many darts at the wall, so to speak. And I had a bunch of people. They're like, Eric, you need to slow down, pace yourself. You're gonna burn out. So I was like, okay, 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 I'll slow down. So yeah, still be trying to do as much stuff as you can, but you're in it for the long run. It's a career, so pace yourself and make sure you don't tire yourself out too much.
Nice. Love it. All right. Are you ready for the controversy question of the
Oh
lightning round?
boy. Oh yeah. Let's hear it.
So this is for sure humorous. And if you get it wrong, I'm just going to keep on going. I may have a little sad face, but I'm going to keep going to the next phase of the podcast episode. But if you get it right, I'll give you a thumbs up and we're still going to keep going. So are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
All right. In your opinion, what is the best for hydration, a water bladder or water bottles?
Oh, okay, yeah. When I was backpacking in for Philmont, when I was in Scouts, I used a water bladder. That did fine. It did eventually grow mold in it. I think Junior said that during his interview, didn't he? He had the same problem, didn't he?
I don't remember.
I think he did. I think I remember him saying that he had, yeah, like so I've had problems with mold growing inside of water bladders before, and I usually don't use them just because like unless it's a yeah unless it's a very specific outing like backpacking, it's not that convenient, at least for me. So I think a water bottle is a lot quicker and easier just to like throw it in the truck or wherever you're going, and you're good for the day. So I'd say water bottle.
Great answer. And I try not to allow anybody with a hydration bladder to backpack with me unless they're very experienced, because all the dangerous situations I've ever been in with other people, they've had a bladder. But also, like, I want to start doing, and I always joke with my wife that anybody that shows up to the trailhead with me, especially in the quads, you're out in the back country, you have a water bladder. I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to poke their water bladder and I'm going to say, now what are you going to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like if you're walking by a honey locust or something like that, and you got a big thorn sticking out, and it goes, and well, now there's your water. Bye bye. So you better hope you have a water bottle after that. I don't know if that's something that happens very often, but I can easily picture it happening.
It's funny in the quads. This has been 3 people that I've been to the quads that after listening to the podcast, shortly after whatever episode that we were talking about it, they said, luckily I caught the bladder leaking in my backpack. Thank goodness it was only a day hike. Cause I mean, you get out there, you're never too far away from a trailhead. So it would be uncomfortable if you ran out of water. But yeah, it's water bottles, water bottles, water bottles.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree.
All right, so are you ready for the next part of the episode? I think it's one of the most important to me, and I get a lot of feedback from the listeners. It's really to get to know you as a ranger. And so kind of the first question is how long have you worked for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and how did you get in?
Yeah, so I'm coming up on my 3-year mark now, which is very exciting. How did I get into Texas Parks and Wildlife? So my internships I actually didn't do with the agency. I did it with Tennessee State Parks back when I lived in Tennessee. I was a seasonal interpretive ranger for Meeman Shelby Forest State Park in the Memphis area, and then also South Cumberland State Park, just west of Chattanooga for 2 summers. I spent my internships there. During and before those internships, I was getting my bachelor's at the University of Tennessee at Martin, which is a little 4-year college just northeast of Memphis, about 2 hours out in the middle of the grain belt of Northwest Tennessee. It's really out there. But yeah, so I got my bachelor's. I did my internships. I volunteered at other state parks in Tennessee, like Reelfoot Lake State Park a lot. Got all of my connections there. and in other places. But leading up to that, and like if there's any kids listening to this, which I would hope there's some, there are things that you can do to help yourself have a higher chance at getting hired with a state parks agency down the road, even when you're young. Like if you're really interested in this kind of thing and you're in your teen years or you're a kid, just coming to state parks and visiting as much as possible. I mean, I was doing that. I couldn't even give you a number how many times I visited, our state parks in Tennessee where I used to live, and how many field guides I bought. And, there's so many different things that you can do, so much stuff that you can research when you're really, really young to increase your knowledge to make you more competitive when you get to that stage. That's kind of a summary of my path to getting to where I'm at now.
So how long have you been at Lake Livingston? All 3 years?
All 3 years. Yep. Yep.
So just to the listeners, if there's anybody listening that does not know what an interpretive ranger, what they actually do, can you give us a little breakdown?
Yeah. So, well, first thing I'll say is that if you're wanting to work not just with Texas Parks and Wildlife, but really any state wildlife or parks agency, there's a variety of different ranger type positions that you can get. So, if you're a kid and you really like building stuff, you might become a maintenance ranger one day. Or, if you really like talking to people and teaching, you might end up like me as an interpreter. There's a vast array of other position types that exist in the agency and beyond. But what an interpretive ranger mostly does is we conduct programs for the public, mostly talking about our natural and cultural resources, as well as doing a lot of outdoor recreational activities. So, for example, kayaking, archery, things like that, hiking. So I'm basically conducting programs in the park just to get people more involved with the park and the resources that we have, and to just give people a way to learn as much about what we have in as fun of a way as possible, and to make people care. I think that's the big thing, is to try and create as many stewards for this kind of thing as we possibly can to get people to care. And I'll also go to schools. I'll go to churches. I was just at the library recently, and I'll go to other parks and I'll help them with their events. I'll attend trainings like the night sky training that I was just at. So there's so many different things that you can do as an interpretive ranger. And really that's just, scraping the surface. I'm also the volunteer coordinator here. So if you're interested in park hosting, I'm one of the first people that you would talk to at our park, at least, about getting you in a site and, getting all your info in line. And, that's a whole other job in and of itself. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do in this position.
So if you look at your job as a whole, what is one thing that you think would surprise the listeners about your role?
One thing that I think they would be surprised about, okay, actually, I think this is important, especially for kids listening to this. I do definitely get to go outside a lot and, be around wildlife a lot. I think a lot of people, they kind of get this idea that you're being paid to like go and play with animals all day, and there is a lot of wildlife encounters and really fun things that go into being an interpretive ranger. But I do want to highlight that there is still I suppose you could say a real work aspect to it. I have to fill out Excel spreadsheets. I've got to send in reports. I've got to, work on websites and do all kinds of things like that. So I don't want to, I don't want anybody that's coming into a position like this to be surprised if they encounter things like that, which is fine. It's not overwhelming in most cases. So just be aware there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that the general public doesn't see, and to not be off put by that.
All right, you pulled up to Lake Livingston State Park for the very first time. You got out of your car. What was your first thoughts?
Well, so the first time I ever came here was after I got hired, and I was just excited, like it was a dream come true. I was like, man, this is the park that little 10-year-old me, if you had only known, here he is now as a 23-year-old. So I think, my biggest first impression was just, man, this is where I'm going to end up having my first park ranger job. And kind of like I said earlier, just getting to go down to the lake and, do normal summertime activities and then just going for a walk, in the shaded areas. I came in August, so it was already insanely hot.
Hey,
So so I was a little I spent a lot of my childhood years in San Antonio, so I was already used to the Texas heat, and that's a totally different type of heat in San Antonio. It's way drier out there. So I wasn't like, super off put by it, but I was like, man, this ain't Tennessee anymore. So yeah, I had all kinds of different impressions that, I was experiencing and all kinds of things that were going through my head. But I was just excited, that this was the park I
yeah.
was going to be working at.
A sidetrack question. What is the horsefly pressure like in the summer?
It's really not terrible. The mosquitoes can be really bad. And we're actually just now getting into that time of year where they're starting to get kind of bad. The rains are coming in pretty hard right now. So, that tends to bring out more populations of them. So, the horse flies though are not really that bad out here. I've had a few. And one thing while we're on the topic of parasites, we hardly ever get any ticks out here. And it's not just in the park. I have barely come across any ticks in any of the natural areas around here, which shocks me because the habitat that we have is fine for them. We have plenty of deer and other animals that they can also parasitize off of, plenty of tall grass, dry areas, wet areas, a variety of different places that they can live. And we really don't get many. The same types of habitats that I'd be getting so many ticks in Tennessee, we don't seem to get them that much here. So that's a plus.
Yeah, I think since 2019, I've been on the Lone Star hiking trail a bunch, and my
Yeah.
phobias are hogs and ticks. And I've gotten one tick, and I lost the trail because it was right after a storm and it was washed out. But I knew I was going to cross this highway, and then I could find the trail again. So I bushwhacked to the highway, and right as I approached the highway, I looked down, and there was a tick on my knee just crawling, and I, thumped him off. And knock on wood, that was the only encounter out of all the years that I've been out there. And yeah, it's shocking.
It's weird, isn't it? I don't know. I've looked into why, and I haven't been able to find a solid answer, but they don't seem to be very prevalent out here. I'm not going to complain, but from an ecology perspective, it just interests me. Like, what is it about this area that makes them not common? Because like I said, the habitat's fine, so I don't know what it is.
Hmm. So what is one thing about Lake Livingston State Park that made you fall in love with it, just kind of from a personal point of view?
Well, so our team is amazing. I love working with everybody here. We have an awesome team of people. We all care about the park a lot. Honestly, I'd say that's one of the biggest things about working here that I love is just, having a team of people that are also passionate about keeping the park running and, making sure everybody's happy. We all get along really well. Yeah, I'd say that's a really, really big part of it. But then also, some more, I guess you could say superficial things like the sunsets are beautiful out here. I always love, like before I do a night hike, I'll come out to the tower that we have outside the park store. If I've got time, I'll go up there and just look at the sunset as it's going by. And there's usually like dozens of other people in the area that do it too, because it's such a spectacular thing that we have here. So there's a million things that I could say for that, but I guess I would, keep it at those two.
It's funny, like we were talking about your content earlier, and I forgot to mention it. One thing that watching your content has kind of reminded me to do is just get on trail and just stop
Yeah. Yeah.
and look at everything around you. Like, how many times have there been some cool fungus growing on a tree or something, and you just walk right past it? And your content always just reminds me that there is so much happening around us when we're on trail, and just stop and just try to find that freaking snake in the tree, or, like,
Yeah.
look around,
Well, no, I love that you said that because, that's one of the big things that I go for. I try to post about a bunch of different things. But, I really try to put a highlight on the things that I believe most people don't even know is here, or maybe things that people overlook in a lot of cases, kind of like well, I was gonna say the love bugs. It was kind of hard to overlook those for a minute because of how many there were, but like little things like that that people walk by. Like I did a video on sweet gum saplings, and how when the trees coming out of the ground at first and it's just a little sapling, how it looks a lot like the grasses and shrubs that live in the area, and how you may not realize that that little tiny thing is going to turn into this sometimes over 100-foot tall tree. And that just amazes me. So if I can get more people to realize those kinds of things, that's one of the biggest reasons I do the videos. So I'm actually really glad that you get that from them. That's awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. So can you give us a quick history of the park and how it came to be?
Yeah, so we used to be timber company land, which is not shocking. I mean, if you've ever been out to, you being any of the people listening to this, I mean, if you've ever spent time in the region of our park in the Livingston area, I mean, we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of acres of timber company properties like Tamarack, Evergreen, Crown Pine. I mean, there's so many different timber companies that we have out here, and our land before we were established was actually owned by one. I'm actually not sure. I was just looking into it. I haven't been able to find out what timber company property that we used to be owned by, but we were timber harvesting and selling land. And then the park was founded in 1977. And some things have changed since we were founded and established. We used to have, for example, a pool that closed around 12 years ago. We also used to have horse stables that also closed around the same time. The horse stables are now replaced with the archery range that I do programs at, usually about once a month. But yeah, we do have we do have a bit of a history behind us, and also we've got the lake right next to us. Obviously, that was created by the TRA, the Trinity River Authority, as well as the city of Houston, and it was mostly just to give more drinking water and just water resources to the city of Houston and the surrounding area. Those are some of the things that are more influential about our history around here.
So what role do you think the park plays for us locals, especially, being so close to Houston?
I think one of the big things that people coming to our park can benefit from, if you are, for example, a Houstonian, is the seclusion aspect to it. We're by no means a dark sky park by any point, by any means. We're not, like Big Bend Ranch or Big Bend National Park. We don't have dark skies like they do, but we're certainly less light polluted than Houston proper, or heck, even some of the areas closer to like Galveston or Beaumont. We've got a pretty nice level of seclusion to the point where you can see a nice night sky. We still do have plenty of highways around here, so it can be a little bit difficult to get away from city and town noises, especially here in the park. There's a few places where you can go and kind of get a little more seclusion that way, but in the larger context of being close to Houston, I'd say what people from that area benefit from us is that they can have a place where they can kind of get away from the city, and it's only an hour out, depending on where in the city you live. But it's not too terribly long of a drive, and you don't have to deal with the Houston traffic as much at that point. So that's always nice.
I think you nailed it. So let's say you're new to car camping or this kind of stuff. You get to the park and you do feel that there's, you're kind of away from everything. But also, if you forgot something, there's a Walmart
Yeah.
probably, 15 minutes away or 20 minutes away, or a
I mean, we've in Livingston proper. I mean, we're not a huge town by any means, but we've got basically everything that you could really need on a whim, at least. We've got a Walmart, we've got a Brookshire Brothers, we got a Lowe's, pretty much everything that you could need if like you said, whoops, I forgot something at home, for the camping trip. You can just run 10 minutes down the road and get pretty much anything that you'd need, but still feel like you're out in nature, if you want to put it that way. So,
Yeah, it's not like in the quads where you're out there in the middle of nowhere. I forgot my canister fuel.
right, yeah, it's no Caprock Canyon or Paladuro or, one of those other ones that are, an hour in either direction is, your closest larger supermarket. We're in a rural area, yes, but we're still developed enough to the point where you can get most of what you need in a pinch.
Yeah, and I think, that's probably one of the most exciting things for me about the park and having you on is that fact that if you're listening to this podcast and you wanna get out and see if you're gonna like this. I don't wanna say camping and backpacking and hiking. It's a hobby. It's to me, it's a lifestyle, and then you
Absolutely.
wanna try it out and see if you like it. Lake Livingston State Park is perfect because you're away just enough to feel like, "Oh, wow, I'm away from all the hustle and bustle," but if you need something, yeah, okay, you're 10, 15 minutes away and you're okay.
100%. Yep.
All right, my favorite part of the episode, trails, hiking. Let's talk about the park. How many miles does the park have?
Yeah. So we have roughly a little over 6 miles of trails. But we've got let's see, we've got Trinity Trace, we've got Oak Flat, we've got the Piney Woods Boardwalk, we've got Fosse, we've got, these are all names of trails that we have for anybody listening that doesn't know. They're all pretty easy. We're in the Piney Woods, and most areas in the Piney Woods is pretty flat. It's not like when you go up into the Guads or into the Davis Mountains where I was recently, or even a lot of places in the hill country where there's a decent amount of topography happening. We're pretty flat, so most of our trails you can hike pretty easily, and they're even pretty ADA accessible too. Like if you're in a wheelchair or something else like that, it's still pretty easy to get around on them. Now, I will say, if you are in a wheelchair and you come out right after a rain, it can be, a little bit tricky because there are a lot of puddles in our trails that are not the boardwalk. And even if you're on a wheelchair and you're on the boardwalk or one of those other areas that aren't, muddy, it's still pretty slippery. So you have to keep that in mind. But you can come out, and I mean, it depends on your stamina, I guess. But you could see most of our trails in a day visit if you were really serious about it. I was replacing some trail markers the other day, and I got to the vast majority of the trails in a little over an hour. So it really wasn't too much, but yeah, we got a good amount of trails. Yeah.
So what you're saying is you are nothing like Cleburne State Park, where the only time in my life I almost died because of
I don't know, switchbacks out there or
it's not no, it's so we were gonna do 25 miles. A friend that was just on the podcast, Cameron, he has a loop and it's a 5-mile loop. And I'm like, and he was like, I've done 20 miles and I want to do 25. And I'm like, oh, you will knock that out for sure.
yeah.
And, we start going in light packs. So everything's at the car and every loop we just got more water and stuff. Well, I didn't realize that they're not massive inclines, but after, 5 miles and there's like 10 of them. Oh man, that was the only, yeah. So we got to mile 20 and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, we really don't have that out here. I mean, and it's a very beginner friendly park. So if you're new to hiking, if you're new to camping, heck, even if you're trying to kayak, we do have lakefront property. It's still owned by TRA, but we still do have lake access that the public can use when they come and visit with us. And if you've got a kayak with you or a paddleboard or something like that, it's pretty easy. Like we don't have the water that we have in our section of lake is not, there's not much current to it. It's pretty stagnant for the most part. I will say if the wind gets kind of high, you don't normally notice this until you get past, the bulkheaded portions of the park beyond our cove. But it can get pretty turbulent with the waters. We can even get whitecaps sometimes coming in and going over the bulkhead, for example, near our store and the day use area. So it can get kind of crazy if there's high winds. But if it's a nice, calm summer day, you're out on the lake and you've got a kayak or something like that, it's very beginner friendly and you can have a good and fun time pretty easily, I'd say.
So, if, for a first time visitor, what is kind of that one trail that you would recommend for them, like most bang for your buck that you're pretty much going to get kind of to see everything that you would want to see at the park?
Yeah, I'd say probably the Piney Woods Boardwalk. I mean, like I said, it really just depends on how much rain there's been. If it's just after a rain, I would personally stay off the boardwalk. I would consider myself a pretty coordinated person, but if I go on that boardwalk after a rain, I'm stumbling around and so uh especially for people that maybe aren't as coordinated or have weak knees or something like that. I would stay off the boardwalk after a fresh rain, but if it's dry, you can walk on the boardwalk, you can go to Duck Pond, you can see Frog Pond too. We've got the bird blind that is just along the boardwalk as well. We've also got a flower garden, a butterfly garden right off to the side of it as well. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can see. And another cool thing about really all of our trails is that they intersect each other. So if you start on one trail, you can easily branch off onto another trail and lead yourself to a completely different portion of the park. Make sure you know where those trails lead before you go on them, obviously. But for example, like if you go on the Piney Woods Boardwalk, it intersects with a few different trails, but the one I'm thinking of is Bakba. You can go up and down Bakba, and Bakba. Eventually, if you go up the northern end of Bakba, you can branch off over to the Trinity Trace Trail. You can go down south until you get to the headquarters building on the Trinity Trace Trail, the Hawthorne Trail. So, like, there's a lot of different networks and a lot of different pathways that you can take. But if you wanted a good catch-all trail and you stuck on one of them, I would say the Piney Woods Boardwalk is a good one.
And what about just from a safety aspect, cell service? Is it pretty prevalent through the park?
Yeah, it depends on who you ask and what providers they have. I have some areas in the park. I mean, I have Verizon, so if you're a Verizon user, this will give you an idea of what it's kind of like. Like some areas in the park are good as far as cell reception for me. Like I'll get 1 or 2 bars in some areas, and I'll get 3 in other areas. But it really just depends on where you're at. Now, I would always suggest, whether you're coming to visit us or any state park, try to, spend not as much time on your phone, obviously. But if it's an emergency and you needed cell service, we do have, for most providers, we have some areas in the park that you can get cell service. You don't have to drive, like 15 minutes away just to make a phone call.
All right, I love this question, and you don't have to give locations if you don't want to. And I think about this in the Guads. I have a lot of places that I love in that park, and I don't want to share them because I love going in the backcountry and not seeing anybody. But Lake Livingston State Park, are there any hidden spots or lesser known areas that you would be able to share with the listeners, kind of if they want to get away from everybody? And
Yeah, and I touched on this a little bit before. I'd say if you really wanted to get away. Okay, well, so first off, if you come on a weekend, those are going to be the times that you're going to struggle to get away from people for the most part. If you come on a weekday, it's pretty relaxed and you can have a lot of the park. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say to yourself necessarily, but like if I've got something I need to hike some of the trails for on a weekday, I rarely see people just meandering along. Sometimes I do, but it's nowhere near as much on a weekend. So pretty much anywhere on a weekday you can come out here and have some sense of seclusion no matter where you are in the park. But if it's a weekend and you're needing some alone time, once again, like if you go to the southern end of the Trinity Trace Trail, not as many people hike out that far. And some of those coves in there, like around where it loops towards the bottom
Hmm.
of the Trinity Trace Trail. Basically, the way it works is it goes in a straight line down south. And then once you get to the southern end of the Trinity Trace Trail, it loops in on itself, and then you go back the way you came. So around where that loop is, it's pretty secluded in most cases. So I'd say that area is pretty good for that.
So we talked about the kayaking, paddleboarding, that kind of aspect of the park. What about fishing?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually lead fishing programs on the weekends. I don't do them every single month. I try to do them as much as I can, but we've got a fishing pier. So, like if you've got your own fishing equipment, you can go use the pier. And, if you're on a state park property and you don't have a fishing license, that's actually fine. I'd always suggest getting one in case you want to fish somewhere else, obviously. But if you just for some reason don't have one, as long as you pay the park admission fee, you can actually fish anywhere from the shoreline or from, a fishing pier on our state parks without a fishing license. Now, if you go on a boat or a kayak or you're actually in the water, and you're on TRA's property at that point, you would need a fishing license then. But yeah, we've got plenty of opportunities for fishing out here. I'd say the fishing piers where most people go. There's also along our day use areas towards the activity center and up towards our north day use area that's by the park store. We get a lot of fishers that are going off of the bulkhead right there. And as far as what people are catching, do you want to talk about what people are catching or?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So normally during my fishing programs, we're predominantly catching bluegill is our most common fish. And I mean, if you're an angler or somebody that's more specifically into fishing, I'm sure that's probably not a surprise. We do also get crappie out here. I have yet to catch one myself. I'm usually, if I'm ever looking for things, I spend more time looking for snakes than I do fish. So I'm not like as in tune with that, but I've never personally caught a crappie, but I know a lot of other fishermen have on the pier. We don't get that many largemouth bass. It is not a common thing to catch bass out here unless it is a striped white bass hybrid. We actually do get a pretty decent amount of striped white bass hybrids out here, which I think is really cool. I didn't even know that they hybridized until few years ago, actually, and we catch a decent amount of them out here. We also get channel cat, we get blue cat. Somebody caught a common carp during one of our fishing programs one time, which was really, really cool. It wasn't a giant one, it was more of a small one. Buffalo, smallmouth buffalo, we've had people catch them out here. And then we also have a really good alligator gar population out here. We don't see people catching them that often, but especially at night, if you go out with a flashlight and you're shining down in the lake, you can usually see them swimming around, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, we've got some pretty good fishing here. It depends on the season. Like if you come in the winter, you're not usually going to be catching as much, but it's starting to pick up now. So if you want to come out in the near future, we're getting some good fishing now.
And for the equipment, does Lake Livingston let people borrow fishing equipment, or do you need to bring your own?
Yeah, so if I'm doing a fishing program, what we do is we actually have fishing pools on site. And we will sometimes let people borrow fishing pools as well, as long as they bring it back afterwards, of course. But typically speaking, if the public is going to use our fishing pools, it's during one of my fishing programs. And I'll do nighttime fishing programs. I'll also do daytime fishing programs as well. It just depends on what I'm offering. But we've got a collection of fishing pools here. But if you have your own, you can also bring yours as well. So,
All right, what about swimming? And let me tell you, at nighttime at my in-laws, they have a pier. You walk out on the pier at night, and I see the size of those alligator gars.
yeah.
Or after a big storm, there's an alligator just floating out there. I'm not getting in that water. But
When it comes to swimming.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.